Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Salim Akhtar Malik, your host at the Observation Post channel. On this channel, I talk to you about national and international affairs, as well as important aspects or important events from military history, which include the present security matters. You can interact with me on my channel by giving your views and comments, and you can also interact with me, that is, you can connect with me at my Twitter address, which is at Salim Akhtar 53. This will help me in fine tuning my views and improving my talks, which I deliver for your benefit on this channel. In this session, I'll be talking to you about the rumors which are presently floating in the air. These are the rumors which have been floated by a segment of the Pakistani media also, which may have been influenced by Indian intelligence agencies. And this type of rumors suggests that India is going to have its forces, that is, it is going to have a military presence. In the military parlance, you may call it, India is going to have its boots on Afghan soil. And that in this endeavor or in this desire by some sections of the Indian establishment, which includes the politicians, civil and military bureaucrats, and think tanks, they are supported by the argument, or they use this argument that since India has got a 1.4 million strong army, it can easily spare tens of thousands of troops to have a military presence, to have a physical military presence in Afghanistan. Now, theoretically, it is possible, and Americans are now strategic ally of the Indian government. They have in India a strategic ally which it is using against China in the South China Sea. So there is a possibility they can give a responsibility to India to look after the affairs in Afghanistan once the American forces leave this country. Now, presently, the United States and its allies are in the process of winding up. They are destroying the equipment which they cannot carry along once they withdraw, and they are now, as I said, in the process of winding up, and the withdrawal of the advanced elements of the American forces in Afghanistan has already started. Some elements have already left Afghanistan, and the rest of them will at best leave Afghanistan by the middle of May, that is this month, or at the most by the end of May. So, when this happens, a vacuum will be created which may be filled by India. And India is spreading these rumors with the help of their Trojan horses, as I said, in Pakistan also. So they have a secret desire to have their boots on Afghan soil. This is not something which they cannot do, theoretically at least. But then why do they have an issue, an emotional issue with Afghanistan? We can trace this emotional attachment with having or possessing Afghanistan to the pre-partition days when the Congress leadership, which was in the forefront of the Indian freedom movement or Indian movement to free India from British occupation. On more than one occasions, the Congress leaders had expressed their desire or expressed or claimed that they considered Afghanistan as within the sphere of influence or sphere of interest, at least, of modern India. They said that the roots of this interest or this claim go back to the ancient times when, according to them, Afghanistan was part of some mythological Indian empires or empire. Now, to quote one instance at least, Gandhi, when he visited the Khyber Pass on one occasion, while standing at the Torkham border, he stated that the boundaries or the border of India does not end at Torkham Pass. It extends well beyond into Afghanistan. So, in the days when British Indian government was again in the process of winding up, the Congress leadership raised a demand through its supporters, that is the Red Shirt Party, which was in power, and the then NWFP province, which is now known as KPK. They said that they wanted a referendum to decide, to ascertain the will of the people of Northwestern Frontier Province of India, whether they wanted to join India or Pakistan once the British left the subcontinent. So a plebiscite was held, a referendum was held, rather, and the people of what is now KPK voted overwhelmingly in support of being part of Pakistan. So this Indian move, this Congressite move, was defeated. Then the Indian leadership, that is the Congress leadership, hoped that since they had plans to take control of the Indian princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, for which they had been working for quite some time, and for which they had the support of the Congress supported Indian Viceroy, that is Lord Mountbatten. He was pro Congress and he was supporting the Congress party for fruition of its aim of getting control of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, for which I don't want to go into details. Suffice it to say that Pakistan preempted this Indian move or the Congress move by sending or by supporting the tribesmen to liberate the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. So, as a result of the first Kashmir war, which was fought between India and Pakistan, or between the, to be more precise, between the tribesmen and volunteers from Poonch district of Jammu and Kashmir, as well as some Pakistan army officers who were sent on leave to provide leadership to the invaders, Pakistan managed to liberate one-third of the disputed state, which included the sliver of territory which is known as Azad Jammu and Kashmir, as well as the strategically important area of Gilgit-Baltistan, which became part of Pakistan. Now, if you look at the map, I had been saying it in my previous videos also, that Gilgit-Baltistan is like a huge plug which prevents India from expanding into Afghanistan, from gaining contiguity with Afghanistan, and also further expanding into Central Asia. India knows this, and Indians' frustrations can be judged from the fact that they realize the fact that they cannot hack away Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir from Pakistan in a conventional war because they lack the conventional punch to do so. So, failing in their endeavor or in their guess and calculations that they cannot hack away Gilgit Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir from Pakistan, they had been for quite some time fomenting trouble in these two strategically important regions, that is Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And they had been promoting separatist setups and separatist movements in both Azad Jammu and Kashmir as well as Gilgit-Baltistan. However, these separatist movements I had been mentioning earlier also, these are not more than a pinprick for Pakistan because they lack the popular support for fomenting or for generating a rebellion, a mass rebellion against Pakistan. So, this is the Indian frustration and its hidden desire. They want to have some form of contiguity with Afghanistan, and in the absence of Pakistan, in the present situation where Pakistan controls Gilgit Baltistan as well as the other land route towards Afghanistan through Pakistani territory, that is through Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which India at the time of independence failed to get integrated within the Indian Union. They now keep raising the balloons, that is, spreading rumors about various contingencies where India may have a presence, that is, its boots on Afghan soil. Now, if you look at it in a practical manner, from the ground point of view, India can only access Afghanistan by sea, and that too not completely because it may land its forces at the Iranian port of Chabahar, and since India has helped Iran in the development of Chabahar port and a road and rail link between Chabahar and the Afghan hinterland, they may negotiate a settlement or an agreement with Iran where they can use the land route to then transport their forces, that is their army, into Afghanistan. This is all theoretically possible, but you look at their behavior and their tendency. In the past, they are averse to risk taking. They are adept at filling a vacuum when there is no enemy. And this is what happened when they invaded the princely states, that is Junagadh, Hyderabad, Manvadar, etc., etc. And while they were integrating more than 500 princely states with the Indian Union at the time of partition. This they did because those states were no match for the Indian army. But when it came to a conflict with Pakistan, though Pakistan had not landed its army in the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was relying mainly on the tribesmen to liberate Jammu and Kashmir, they failed to hack away or to occupy the entire princely state, and thus one third of the disputed state went to Pakistan. Now, when Pakistan had infiltrated the tribesmen into Jammu and Kashmir, that is the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, they had reached the outskirts of Srinagar, and at that time, the pro Congress Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten, suggested that India airlift its army into Srinagar and thereafter launch a military operation against the tribesmen. This they did, and they were successful. But we must keep in mind that the advanced elements of the airborne force, that is the force which was used to airlift the Indian troops into Jammu and Kashmir, it was initially one Indian regiment, that is one Sikh, which was airlifted, and they had explicit instructions that come what may, in case there was any opposition from the ground, that is, if there was a presence of the tribesmen in and or around Srinagar airfield and they fired, if they fired at the Indian airborne force which was going to be landed at Srinagar airport, then instead of landing there, they would immediately turn back. However, this did not happen because the tribesmen were not there in Srinagar. They were in Baramulas, that is some distance away from Srinagar. So Indians succeeded in airlifting their army to the Jammu and Kashmir state. So this is when there was no enemy. I'll cite two other examples also. In 1987, the Indian Army launched its 10 parachute regiment, that is the special forces, to flush out a bunch of rebels which were holed inside the Jaffna University. At that time, there was an Indian sponsored insurgency, Tamil insurgency going on in Sri Lanka. So they airlifted their forces to flush out the rebels from inside the Jaffna University, but they failed and suffered heavy losses. Although the rebels again were no match for the Indian army. So then they, after some time, they relaunched this, they attacked for the second time, and this time they claimed that they had killed at least 200 Sri Lankan rebels. But we don't know how many casualties the Indian army had suffered. Then again in 1987, the Indian army had a put up show. A choreographed operation was launched, like they had launched on a larger scale in East Pakistan in 1971, where they said that the Maldives government Maldives is a small island and its government is just a name. So at that time, they claimed that Maldives was, the government was toppled by a bunch of rebels. When they released the photographs of those rebels, they looked like petty thieves. It didn't appear that they were trained militants. So they launched their para forces and tried to capture Maldives by defeating the rebels who had taken over the government. They succeeded in their effort, but then again, those rebels were no match for the Indian army. So this operation was launched with the help of the 50 independent parachute brigade. Now imagine a parachute brigade being used to flush out rebels which were not properly trained, which were not trained in the military arts and crafts. So, this is the stark reality. Indians do have the desire, but they don't have the will. And there, if we go by historical records, they have a miserable record in there whenever they tried to launch operations on foreign soils. So, putting Indian boots on Afghan soil will involve actual fighting and not surgical strikes, which they claimed they launched in the disputed state of Jammu and Kashmir. They said that they had launched surgical strikes against the so-called launching pads of terrorists in Pakistani controlled Azad Jammu and Kashmir, which was a myth. So, this is all I wanted to tell you. The, to conclude, I would say that when the Americans withdraw, a vacuum will be created, which most likely will be filled by the Taliban because the Taliban are the most organized force in Afghanistan. And this may happen like it happened in Vietnam some 3 decades ago, when, after the withdrawal of the American troops from South Vietnam, the Viet Cong, the North Vietnam supported Viet Cong guerrillas, invaded South Vietnam and captured the country, and thereafter united it with North Vietnam, and then a united Vietnam came into being. So this time the situation is slightly different. The Taliban are not being supported by Pakistan or any other country, like the Vietnamese guerrillas, that is, the Viet Cong, were supported by Russia and to some extent China, at least in provision of arms and ammunition. So the Taliban are on their own, and furthermore, Afghanistan is not divided like Vietnam was divided into South and North Vietnam. However, we can draw a rough parallel between the two countries, and this is going to happen. And this will be sheer living in a fool's paradise if Indians think that they can fill the vacuum created by the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan by landing their forces in the troubled country. So this is all I wanted to say in this session. See you in this next session with some new topic. Till then, bye-bye.